All right. Hi, fifth graders. First and foremost, if you're following the PTA's virtual online spirit week, today is the Wear Your Favorite Sports Team Day. So I took a break from Michigan State and I have my Seattle Seawolves shirt on, which is the Seattle rugby team. Unfortunately, the season has been canceled for the rest of the year, but still a big fan. I'm excited for it to come back next year. So hopefully you are wearing or can go put on your favorite sports team at home today. So we finished Ugly, and we're going to start a new book today for our read aloud. And this one is called Ban This Book by Alan Gratz. And I read this with my class last year, and they really enjoyed it. So I figured we would do it again this year. So let me just read you the inside kind of synopsis of the book. So it says, it all started the day Amy Ann Ollinger tried to check out her favorite book in the whole world, which is called From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler, from the school library. That's when Mrs. Jones, the librarian, told her the bad news. Her favorite book was banned. All because a classmate's mom thought the book wasn't appropriate for kids to read. Amy Ann decides to fight back. Soon, she and her friends find themselves on the front line of an unexpected battle over book banning, censorship, and who has the right to decide what they can read. So that's what this book is about. Sorry, trying to adjust on the couch here. And yeah, I'm going to do, when I said this before, I said I was going to do a chapter a day. And then I looked and some of the chapters are really short and some are a little bit longer. So it might be a couple chapters a day. It might just be one depending on the length of the chapter. But here we go. So ban this book. All right. So just to give you kind of an intro, each of the chapters starts with this logo with like a book, the ban sign over it. And the first chapter is called The Mystery of the Missing Book. Excuse me. It all started the day my favorite book went missing from the library. I didn't know it was missing. Not yet. In my mind, it was still sitting there all alone on the shelf, like a kid in the cafeteria waiting for her one and only friend to come find her. Waiting for me to find her. All I wanted to do was run to the library and check out my favorite book before homeroom, but Rebecca, my one and only real-life friend, was still talking about trademarking our names. Have you ever thought about registering amyannollinger.com? Rebecca asked me. No, Rebecca, I have never thought about registering amyannollinger.com. I am 9 years old. Why in the world would I bother to register a website with my name on it when my parents won't even let me use Facebook yet? That's what I thought about saying. What I said instead was, no. You should, Rebecca told me. You've got a unique name, but even so, somebody could register it, and then what would you do? RebeccaZimmerman.com is already gone. I'm 10 years old, and already my future intellectual property is being snapped up. Jay-Z and Beyonce trademarked their baby's names less than a month after she was born. You'd think my parents would have known enough to do the same. Rebecca's parents were both lawyers, and she wanted to be one too when she grew up. I couldn't imagine a more boring job. Instead, I said, yeah. I was still itching to get to the library and check out my favorite book. I opened my locker to stuff my backpack inside and gave my mailbox a quick look. Nobody knows how it got started, but everybody at Shelbourne Elementary has these cardboard boxes taped to the inside of their lockers, just below the little vents they put on there in case you get stuffed in your locker by a bully. If you want to leave a note for somebody, you just slip the piece of paper in the slot and it falls right into the little cardboard box. It's such a tradition that Mr. Crutchfield, the custodian, just leaves the boxes in the lockers from year to year. As usual, my mailbox was empty, which I'd expected. My one and only friend doesn't believe in writing notes. Never leave a paper trail, Rebecca says. More advice from her lawyer parents. Did you hear about Morgan Freeman, the actor? Rebecca asked. Somebody who wasn't named Morgan Freeman registered his name at morganfreeman.com, and he had to sue them to get it back. Now that's an interesting case. I can't imagine anything less interesting, Rebecca. I don't care anything about trademarks or registering domain names. I have to go check out my favorite book before somebody else does. That's what I wanted to tell her. Instead, I held up a handful of books like a shield and said, I have to return these books to the library before class, and backed away before she could tell me more about the court case. I'll see you in homeroom, I called. Normally, I would already have my favorite book checked out and in my backpack, but our librarian, Mrs. Jones, has a rule that you can only renew a book 2 times in a row, and then it has to sit on the shelf for 5 whole school days before you can check it out again. She says it's to make sure other people get a chance to read it, but I think she made that rule up just to make me read other books, which I would have done anyway. I dumped last night's books in the book return and waved good morning to Mrs. Jones on the way to the fiction shelves. Amy Ann, Mrs. Jones called. Honey, wait. Just let me grab my book, I called back. I turned into the H through N shelves and hurried to where I knew my favorite book would be waiting for me. Only it wasn't there. I looked again. It still wasn't there. I looked behind the books, in case it had gotten pushed back and was hidden behind the others like they sometimes do. But no, it really wasn't there. But my favorite book was always on the shelf. Could somebody else really have checked it out? I was about to go and ask Mrs. Jones when she turned down the row. Mrs. Jones is a big lady with short brown hair and rhinestone granny glasses that hang around her neck on a chain when she isn't reading. Today, she was wearing a red dress with white polka dots. Polka dots are her thing. Where's my book? I asked her. That's what I was trying to tell you, honey, Mrs. Jones said. I knew you'd come in for it first thing. It's been 5 days, I told her. I marked it down on my calendar. I get to check it out again after 5 days. You said so. Did somebody else check it out? No, Amy Ann. I had to take it off the shelf. I frowned. Take it off the shelf? What did she mean, take it off the shelf? Why? Mrs. Jones sighed and wrung her hands. She looked like she was about to tell me my dogs had died. Because some parents got together and said they didn't think it was appropriate for elementary school, and the school board agreed with them. Wasn't appropriate? What does that mean? It means I can't check it out to you, honey, or to anybody else. Not until I talk to the school board and get this nonsense overturned. It means, Amy Ann, that your favorite book was banned from the school library. Hang on, I'm seeing how far I want to read. Okay, I'm going to read 2 more chapters because they're short. So this chapter is called, Did I Just Say That? I felt the carpet under my feet was turning into quicksand and I was sinking fast. I grabbed hold of the bookshelf so I wouldn't fall over. But it isn't inappropriate. It's very appropriate. It's a great book. It's my favorite book. I know, honey. I agree. Nobody but your parents has the right to tell you what books you can and can't read. I promise you, I'm going to fight this. But in the meantime, I have to abide by what the school board decides, or I could lose my job. All I could do was nod. I felt like crying, which was stupid. It was like somebody had come into my bedroom and taken my stuff without asking, which was even more stupid because it was a library book. Library books belong to everybody. You can help get it back, Amy Ann, Mrs. Jones said. I wiped a tear from my cheek. How? There's going to be a school board meeting Thursday night, and I'm going to be there to tell them all how wrong they are. It'd be even better if they heard it from you. My eyes went wide. Me? Just to hear why you like that book so much would mean a lot. I swallowed hard. Are you crazy, Mrs. Jones? Me? Get up in front of a bunch of adults and tell them why that book is my favorite book? Do you have polka dots on the brain? I can't do that. That's what I wanted to say. Instead, what I said was, okay. This chapter is called My Favorite Book and Why. The late bus dropped me off in my neighborhood, and I stood by the curb, looking down the street at my yellow house. Inside that house right now were Thing 1 and Thing 2, my 2 annoying little sisters. I closed my eyes and shuddered at the thought of having to spend 1 more minute with them. You haven't met them yet, but trust me, if there was a prize for worst siblings of the century, Alexis and Angelina would rank above Fudge Hatcher, Stink Moody, and Edmund Penvency. And Edmund basically sold his brothers and sisters out to the White Witch for a plate of desserts. Pevensie. I'm going to say Pevensie. Edmund Pevensie. Right then and there, I thought about running away from home, just like the main characters in my favorite book. Did I tell you what my favorite book is? The one that got banned from the Shelbourne Elementary Library? The one I said I would go to a school board meeting and talk about out loud in front of other people? It's from the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler by E. L. Konigsberg. I like a lot of other books too, especially Island of the Blue Dolphins, Hatchet, My Side of the Mountain, Hattie Big Sky, The Sign of the Beaver, and Julie of the Wolves. Basically any story where the main character gets to live alone. Indian Captive is pretty great too, even though Mary Jemison has to live in an Indian village. But I would rather live with Indian kidnappers than live with my two stupid younger sisters. I turned away from my house and looked down the road that led out of my subdivision toward the 4-lane. Papa Taco, our favorite Mexican restaurant, was just 15 minutes away by car. I could run away to there. How long would it take me to walk it? I shook my head. Even if I made it, what was I going to do? In From the Mixed Up Files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler, Claudia and her little brother Jamie run away to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City and hide out every night in the bathrooms so the security guards don't find them. I could hide out in the Papa Taco bathroom until they locked up for the night, but then I'd just be stuck in a Mexican restaurant all night. Now, if I could somehow get to the library... My dreams of running away died as my mom's car turned into the subdivision and came my way. I waited until she stopped alongside me and rolled down her window. Hey, stranger, thinking about running away? Of course I was thinking about running away. Every day I stand here and think about how I could fill my backpack with a change of clothes and all the money I have, which isn't much because you don't give me enough allowance, and ride the bus until it dropped me off somewhere closer to the mall where I could sleep every night on the beds in the department store. That's what I wanted to say, but of course I didn't. Instead I said, no. Mom was lighter skinned than me, with frizzy hair and big dimples in her cheeks when she smiled, like she was now. Hop in, she said. How was school? She asked as we cruised the 30 seconds to our driveway. I wanted to say, it was awful. My favorite book got banned, and Mrs. Jones asked me to come to a school board meeting and talk about it, and I said yes, and I don't know how I'll ever do it. But instead, I just said, fine. Don't put your braids in your mouth, Mom told me for the millionth time. My whole head is covered in braids, some of them with little beads at the bottom. I suck on them when I get nervous, which is a lot. Mom pulled in beside Dad's truck. I got out and stood by the car, reluctant to go inside. Oh, come on, Mom said. It's not that bad. Oh, yes it is, I wanted to say, but of course, I didn't. All right, we're going to stop there for today, but tomorrow we're going to start with this chapter called Ponies in Pink Tutus. So, bye guys.